Good morning. Welcome to IT Live, presented by Academy Sports and Outdoors. I'm Joe Cook. That's Justin Wells. That's Ian Boyd. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and of course, subscribe to Inside Texas today. Use that first link in our description. Use the QR code. I'm looking for it. They changed up a little bit. There we go. Use that QR code at the top left of the screen. Get 50% off annual subscriptions. That's On3, that's Rivals, that is Inside Texas. And also, make sure you go over to our Instagram page. Go check out the Academy Inside Texas Ultimate Tailgate Giveaway. You get a Blackstone Grill, Yeti cooler, 2 tumblers, 2 Longhorn chairs, and a tent that's over $1,000 in value. Go to our link in our description to our Instagram page. Sign. All the info is there, and make sure you tag a friend in order to sign up. We'll give away all the great stuff right after the Texas A&M and Texas baseball series is done. Big weekend in College Station. Can't wait for that to get going. Ian, we got to talk a little bit about explosive plays. And I think that was last year something that the Longhorn offense was missing, especially in the run game. I think how many explosive run plays of 30 or more yards do you think were produced by the Longhorns last year?
Of 30 or more yards?
Of 30 or more yards.
20?
You are way off. 8. How many do you think, Justin, were produced by Arch Manning?
7.
Also off. 3. But even so, you only had 8 30-yard. I counted 8 runs last year. Runs.
Runs.
Yes.
You didn't say runs.
I said rushes. I'm sorry. Okay. 8 rushes of 30 or more yards.
I would have gone way low if I had.
If it was rushes, I would have said 3.
Yeah,
it was 8 rushes or 30 or more yards. Manning had 3 of them. He almost had 4. That run against Oklahoma was only 29 yards.
That's a shame because he slid.
Yeah. And so there was one against Florida, one against Texas A&M, and then the one against Michigan. How many do you think, Justin, that Rayleigh Brown and Hollywood Smothers combined for last year at Arizona State and NC State?
27.
Ian?
I'm just going to say 30. Just top him by a little bit.
No, it was not that many. It was 10. But still, those 2 players combined, Hollywood Smothers and Rayleigh Brown, had more 30-yard rushes than the entire Texas team. That spoke, I think, Justin, to not only the talent and the skill sets in that running back room, but also just Texas' inability to really run block at all last year.
They didn't have a home run hitter. That's what they were missing. They just didn't have that guy, that breakaway guy.
So one of the good things that we've heard and that Steve Sarkisian talked about, I think on Tuesday, he was asked to identify 2 areas where his team has improved most on offense. And he said, from an offensive perspective, I definitely think our ability to create explosive plays is showing up. We have real playmakers that know how to make people miss in the open field. We've got guys who can make plays on the ball. We've got versatile players that can do multiple things that challenges the defense. Ian, we've heard a lot over the past couple of weeks, not only of Rayleigh Brown and Hollywood Smothers and even Derek Cooper logging some explosive plays, but we also know that that's going to come from the pass game. When you look at the pass game, long passing plays, I'll try to define my terms very, very clearly this time. When you think of long pass plays, and I think for this article I said it was 40 or more yards. So a real bona fide field flipper. 30 yards typically does it, but 40 is, sometimes you're playing the fight song when that happens. How many pass plays of 40 or more yards do you think Texas had in 2025?
7.
Justin?
17.
Justin, you're closer. It was 13 pass plays of 40 or more yards. So
half of those were the first play of the game, the shovel screen out to Ryan Wingo.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
So you got a few of those. You also had, I think that Ryan Wingo touchdown in the A&M game counted. And if you go to overall, let's see, what did I say? Okay, plays of 50 or more. All right, 50 or more yards. Okay, overall plays of 40 or more yards. So this is long plays from scrimmage, not punt returns, not anything like that. What do you think the national leader was? This is interesting. So think of styles of offense, think of who they played. Who do you think the national leader in plays of 40 or more yards was?
North Texas.
Ian?
It's not Iowa, Ian.
That was a great guess that you had.
No, it's North Texas.
I'm trying to think of if there's anybody else that would have. No, I think it's North Texas as well.
It is not North Texas. It is South Florida.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Byron Brown. They had 28 plays of 40 or more yards. The teams that had at least 20, Florida State, Vanderbilt, Ohio State, North Texas, Mississippi State, Utah, Old Dominion, UTSA, Notre Dame, James Madison, USC, and here are some that make sense. Oregon, Ole Miss, and Texas State. Those were going up all the way up to USF, your leaders in 40-plus yard plays. How many total 40-plus yard plays do you think Texas had in its 13 games? I've kind of given you the math, but 40-plus yard plays from scrimmage in 13 games. I'll just get to it. 16 total. So Texas really flipped the field 16 times last year in 13 games. That was the first time that Texas had held under 20 40-plus yard plays since the 2022 season. And granted, that even speaks to it too, Justin, in the fact that in the 2023 and 2024 season, they had extra games to get to past 20. The overall point is there's been diminishing returns, whether it be the 2021 bad offensive line and everything, the 2022, and Ian, I hear you talking about Casey Thompson, but I'm not looking for that right now as I search for my computer charger, which I got to go find in a second, which means I got to leave. But Justin, Ian, give me 30 seconds. Texas just has not been explosive, and Steve Sarkisian now thinks that he's got an explosive offense here heading into 2026.
Well, I mean, I think that makes sense when the players – he had a type this offseason. You know what I mean? Kind of the big home run hitter types, the Smothers, the Raleek Brown, the Cam Coleman. Those guys were kind of known for their big plays. So it feels like Sark knew kind of what he wanted to identify in this offseason. And he knew he wanted to completely change that running back room.
Yeah, even the only non-explosive skill player they added, Masunis, is like, we need somebody who can block. So Raleek Brown can have the edge, who can block so that we can throw it deep to Cam Coleman. Yeah. So, yeah.
Sark had a type, Joe, that he brought in this offseason, and it was called scoring touchdown play types.
Yeah, and for that to already be evident, I think here in spring practices, definitely a good sign already, because I'm going to name off some of the players that Texas has at that skill position. Excuse me. Sterling Burkhalter, Cam Coleman, Ryan Wingo, Emmett Mosley, Dalen McCutcheon, Jermaine Bishop. That's just in the wide receiver room. You mentioned Masunis, not as explosive or thought to be explosive, but still in that room. Nick Townsend, he'll definitely be explosive. And then the three running backs. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for the tight end.
Do we consider Nick Townsend to be an explosive player?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
For his position.
Yes. Did you think Jatavian Sanders was explosive in his second season, his second real season?
felt like he made big plays. I guess I just didn't consider them explosive. I just said I thought he made big plays, but I mean, Nick Townsend didn't do anything Jatavian Sanders did the last 2 years.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
No. I think he's got it, but I'm not giving him an explosive label yet because I've seen him touch the ball 9 times at Texas.
Yeah.
That
I think that is a huge deal for not only progress. I mean, progress in the passing game with explosivity, that's going to be big. But if they can just sneak a handful of explosive runs that aren't Arch Manning being put at risk of getting hit, that is going to, like, explosive run plays, I think Ian at this point become offensive coordinators and play callers' best friend, because it's just like you're not doing anything that extravagant to pick up yards. It's just take ball and go. If you're able to do that, it really makes offense a lot simpler.
Theoretically, Sark tends to do pretty fancy stuff to create those. But yeah, I think also for a team that has persistent issues with procedural penalties and short yardage running and red zone scoring, you just want to the explosive play as a cure-all.
Yeah.
Let's just score from 40 out, 30 out, and not have any issues. You put up points like that, and that's it. You're good.
The explosive plays are the Robitussin for the lack of rushing and short yardage, the red zone issues, things of that sort.
Similarly, just to touch on this subject, how many 40-plus yard plays total do you think Texas gave up last year?
Gave up? Well, like 3 against Georgia. Yeah, it's big passing plays. Maybe only 2, but a few. 3 or so against Vanderbilt.
Surprisingly,
2 against Florida.
I'm going to say 12.
Surprisingly, 40-plus yard plays, they only gave up 7. And the national leader was Ohio State with 3. But when you change that to chunk plays, 20-plus yard plays, Ohio State, again, the national leader with 26 given up. Texas gave up 49 plays that were 20-plus yards.
Where's that rank nationally?
CFB Stats does the thing where it's tied, so if you have like X many teams tied, about 46th. So not good, but not bad. But when you get to 10-plus yard plays, and this is an interesting thing, like I think it speaks to Michael Taft and Jelani McDonald a lot. 10-plus yard plays, Texas was 82nd, gave up 168 plays of 10-plus yards. So they were giving up chunk plays, not big chunk plays, but still like they were getting that. I think it spoke to maybe the lackluster play we saw from the linebackers a little bit last year, right, Justin? I mean, we saw great stuff from Anthony Hill, but at the same time, it didn't seem like it was all together at that second level and then into the third level as often as it needed to be. You're also starting a true freshman at nickel.
Yeah, I thought Leona played just fine, though. I think it was the scheme more than the linebacker play, because PK's bend don't break was kind of their motto. And so I'm not sure. I thought linebacker play was fine. I just thought it was the scheme that was going to give up that bend don't break kind of mentality, which I think ultimately is one of the things that cost PK.
Let me see what it was. So in 2024, and granted, this doesn't.
I felt like linebacker play was fine last year. Like, I guess two-year starters back there.
LaFau had some problems as the season went on. Here's an interesting stat for 2024, which was maybe the best defense in school history, or at least of the Sark era. Texas gave up 152 10-plus yard plays, and that was in 16 games. And if you kind of look through the leaderboard, the only team that they're the only team that has that 16 game tab by them. Everybody else is 12 or 13. So obviously they took a step back, but one place that they did better last year and that Steve Sarkisian's seen a little bit more improvement on defense, we'll talk about in just a second, right after we hear from Academy.
Oh, it's an auto worm bite, turns out.
Giant. Oh, a giant.
It's a giant, so.
Oh, it's a giant. Oh, it's a giant. It's a giant.
So Steve Sarkisian talking about explosive plays on offense being one of the things that he's seen a lot of improvement from during the spring. He's also seen turnovers be something that his defense is producing, and it's zero sum. Why is Texas turning the ball over? Oh, good job, you're getting the turnovers. It all balances out there in the end. But Texas was already a very strong team in terms of turnover margin last year. They were plus 14, and that was Indiana was far and away the best team at that, plus 22. They only lost 8 turnovers in 16 games. Again, that speaks to just how impressive they were. And the way turnover margin is done, it's done as a ratio instead of or some people do it as a ratio instead of the pure margin. Still, it's about the same either way. But Texas only turned opponents over 23 times. Texas Tech was the leader at 32. Indiana was 30. And they lost a grand total of 9 times. That's still pretty good numbers. And I feel like for Steve Sarkisian to be looking around and seeing, I had a top 10, top 20 turnover margin team last year, and they're turning the ball, they're creating more turnovers in the midst of a schematic install. Seems like some evidence that, yeah, you may have some guys who miss where they're supposed to be every now and then, Ian, but those guys can make up for it in a way by making a play that maybe hasn't been around in a while.
It could also be looking at your starting quarterback is not getting very many reps. And so you got KJ Lacey and maybe more particularly Dia Bell throwing up mistakes for them to catch. But my guess would be that Muschamp's system is forcing tighter throws and picking off more passes with the safeties. And apparently Samari Matthews is accounting for half of these, right? It's just every game. Yeah. So that's kind of what you want to hear. That's not really that surprising to me because I think a lot of Muschamp and Gideon as secondary coaches in their system. And Texas had so much latent potential with all these guys, talented guys that were young last year returning and now getting a much different and higher level instruction than they were a year ago. Last time we saw this from 2007 to 2008, it was pretty similar. So what with regards to not just Samari Matthews, but some of the other defensive backs, Justin, what do you think may be helping them make some more plays in the back end?
I think the added athleticism. Michael Taft was a one of one back there. I mean, the guy was a quarterback, but at the same time, there were a few plays where a superior athlete probably makes those. That's why I think if you'll remember Jelani McDonald when he took Taft's spot for that at least one game or two when Taft was dealing with the injury, that's why you saw Jelani be more active. So I think the added athleticism in the back secondary is going to be part of what helps create that. Plus, bringing in a new system, everyone in the SEC had been used to PK for the last 2 years. Now they're going to have to get a rejuvenated Muschamp. And I think that's going to take a few months of tendencies and game tape to kind of figure that out as well. So just the added athleticism back there.
That's going to be a lot of fun to track at this point. Do you take anything away, Ian, from the fact that this is KJ Lacey. This is Diabell. This could be MJ Morris making those problems.
Definitely some. You noted that Texas's turnovers were extremely low last year on offense. So the margin was like not bad, right? Wasn't the margin ended up being pretty good?
Correct.
Arch Manning just does not give up the ball. It's like one of his, even when they were struggling early in the year, I guess maybe he did have some turnovers early, but it's
really, he only threw like 2 bad picks, man. The Florida one, and there's one other one.
I think the one against UTEP was really the only bad pick of the season.
Really?
The other one, anyway, Arch Manning is exceptional at protecting the football. I think it's an overlooked talent of his skill. So I don't remember what.
And it's not only.
That's got to be part
it's
of it.
Not only with the ball leaving his. Yeah, it's not only with the ball leaving his hands for a pass. It's with the ball in his hands too. Like Justin, he knows how to get down and get out of bounds, like Archie told him to.
And he's a big boy. Like Arch is a big guy. So when he tucks the ball in, and you notice when he breaks off those runs, how he starts to put both arms on the ball, because it's been ingrained in his brain since he was born as operational quarterback future. Hey, protect the football. Like, I mean, it's probably something they talk about at breakfast, you know, Hyde's eating Legos and Eggos and May's hitting eggs, and you got Arch over there protecting the hash browns and the bacon. He's like, look, I cannot give these up. I'm the future of the quarterbacks here.
Should be fun to see. I like that Sark was pretty quick to get to that point. Be like, yeah, it's explosive plays and it is turning the ball over. I mean, and those are technically explosive plays for the defense as well. So, you know, those are big plays. It'd be interesting if he's like, no, I like these fine details that are where you find the extra yards. That shouldn't be the biggest improvement. You want the improvement in places that make big impacts. Ian, let's talk a little bit of scheme. You talked on Inside Texas, not only on this channel, I think on Saturday, but also the fact, and earlier today as well, in your article about a certain front Texas is using. And I'm going to bring it up on the screen, and it brings a lot of guys up to the line of scrimmage into that, you know, the first parts of that second level.
Yeah, this is the penny front. We last Saturday, Pack walked us through the penny front and the Muschamp playbook and how this works, or like the broader Nick Saban school of defense that Muschamp is a part of. And as we were talking about it, I was like, you know what, this would sure make a lot of sense for Texas to use a lot this year, and particularly against there's some opponents on the schedule that I think would be very vulnerable against it. But it's like the mint front defense, only you walk down one of the linebackers to the edge. So the money sign is the money backer. It's possible that's what they were doing with Tyler Atkinson in that scrimmage when he was just kind of running amok on blitzes. Maybe it was just normal blitzes. And then you walk down the safety to whichever side that the money is on, the tight end side. And he plays almost like a linebacker. So this is what Ohio State was like living in this last year. And that money would be Arvell Reese, and the down safety would be Caleb Downs. And they just gave teams fits because they had like Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles, Kenyatta Jackson, Caden Curry, all these like freak athletes up and down the line of scrimmage. And it's hard to get help for your blockers to get to block any of them because there's too many of them up on the line, right?
Right.
And they can disguise like who's going to drop, who's going to come after the quarterback, who's going to slant and move here and there. So if you imagine this with Texas, this just could be very formidable. Like you still have your nickel secondary, so you still have a cornerback on all three receivers with the star being like Littleton or Masco or whoever, right? So there's not like – it's basically the 46 defense, but the way you would destroy the 46 is you'd spread it out and then you'd pick on guys in space. This is already accounting for you trying to do that. Then you imagine Colin Simmons as the jack. Maybe that money is Brad Spence. So now you don't have to.
That's who you used as the cover picture for this article.
Yep. It could be, Kosiak Pala makes sense for this. You could just do it with Rasheem Biles or Tyler Atkinson just to reduce their linebacking roles to be really fast on the edge. Ty Anthony Smith would probably be good at this. And then when you still have Lance Jackson at defensive end. So you just have a ton of pass rushing talent on the field. And if the offense tries to load up against that, then Hero Canoe at tackle or whoever, Alex January, maybe a nose, Murad Watson. It just gets hard to deal with all the pressure. It's like Justin. It's like challenging the point guard before he gets to half court. You're just applying pressure all the time, relentlessly,
hoping to create turnovers, create pressure with hope to put them in bad positions to force them into bad plays. It's the antithesis of like a full court defense.
Yeah, it's
you're doing it to put pressure on them.
Put enough pressure on the guy, and they're going to mess up eventually. Didn't OU use this to great effect a couple of years ago, like as a last stand of Alex Grinch?
Grinch, more when he first arrived, he would kind of do this where Kenneth Murray would be the guy that walked down, and then they just let him play almost like an edge. And then they had a lot of – they had like Ron Perkins and Nick Benito. They just had way too much speed up front. And they did that to Texas in 2019 and absolutely – had like 8 sacks on Sam Ehlinger or something ridiculous and just obliterated them right out of the gate.
Obviously there's a lot of open space you see at the top of the screen there. What are some of the things that defenses have to do in order to make this work? Because you see the corner aligned by the Z, you see the money, and then also the field or the free safety, over the Y. The star over the H, the other corner over the X. That's a lot of, at least from the chalkboard, a lot of one-on-one matchups. What do you do in order to make sure that you win those one-on-one matchups, or is it just, okay, go win the one-on-one matchups, buddy?
Yeah, make sure that Jeremiah Smith is not the Z in this formation.
Yep. Yeah, basically that.
Just asking for.
You could get into this late to disguise it. And just have the money kind of walk over and the free safety slide down late. So they don't realize you're doing this until right before the snap. Or you could show this and then drop the money and the free safety back out into a more typical quarters kind of deal. You could have that corner over the Z bail, like show press, but then just bail so that they try to dial up a deep shot. And then it's like, oh, no. There's a lot of things you can do, but it ultimately just comes down to you're just lining up one-on-ones everywhere, and you're betting you're going to lose your one-on-ones against our front, and so it's not going to matter if we don't always win our one-on-ones on the back because the ball's never going to get there.
That's the real important thing, because Justin, look at it this way. For the run game or even for pass protection, there is only at least as far as blockers go, let's see, if I can count correctly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, there we go. You've got 7-on-7 basically in the box to where you are setting up one-on-ones, not only for your run defense, but most importantly for your pass rush if this ends up being a pass play.
You're trusting your guy's ability tremendously when you do this kind of stuff. And this is what a lot of what Muschamp likes, the man stuff on the outside, if I remember correctly, Ian. So yep. Like you're trusting your people a lot. Against an inferior offense, I think this probably works. But against a team like an Ohio State with Jeremiah Smith or someone else with an explosive offense, you're going to win some and you're going to lose some of these battles.
Where do you see someone like, again, Colin Simmons will be playing that jack. Who else can kind of fit into the Brad Spence walked down money role? I think you had mentioned Smith Rogbo. Who would be like a perfect player for this? Maybe for some Texas teams past. Sergio Kindle.
Sergio Kindle literally played that spot. So
yeah.
Muschamp actually did this in 08 with Arakpo and Kindle. As you imagine, that went really well. They did it in 09.
Kindle a linebacker in 08?
Yeah. He was like Brad Spence. They'd move him around a little bit.
Because he didn't come to the edge or down to the line until Arakpo graduated.
No, he would at times, and sometimes.
Right, but not normally. Not normally. He was a linebacker in 08. He was a defensive end in 09. We took Arakpo's spot in 09. They're like, hey, we got to find somebody that can create what Brian did for us in 08 and winning all those awards. Sergio goes, yeah, I got it.
Justin, I'm going to pop you out for just a second because you're coming through a little choppy. Ian, you get to the point in the article as I bring the article back onto the screen. How often could this help Texas? And you mentioned, because of the Arvell Reese factor, because of Caleb Downs, this was what Ohio State did, Sonny Styles as well. They're good edge rushers. This was something that they did often. Is this a every down thing? Is this a, how often do they use this and how often do they try to get the most out of it?
Probably some on third downs against anybody. On third downs against anybody, it's going to be stuff like this and all sorts of wild stuff. They have so many guys that are going to be dangerous pass rushers. But as a every down kind of base defense, this is a very good way to stuff outside zone teams. Because you have an edge on either side, and the whole point of outside zone is to create lateral stress. You want to move horizontally and just make it so that the front extends and holes open up because the defense loses track of gaps. And that's hard to do when there's an edge on either side setting a hard perimeter. It just kind of hems the play in. It's also hard because penetration kills outside zone. And if you can't get doubles anywhere on the front because there's so many guys, then you just run into trouble where it's like everything went right except the guy that was supposed to block Hero Canoe couldn't get him. And now the whole thing is ruined. Belichick used something like this to stuff Sean McVay in that Super Bowl, that last one they won with the Patriots and Brady. And then ever since then, teams have used this against outside zone because it's so effective at the hard edges and the opportunities to create penetration. So it's good for that. Now, that's not something that's like all over the schedule because college football teams don't major in outside zone the same way they do in the NFL. But anybody that does, look out.
Yeah, you brought up Ohio State, Missouri, and then also Florida. Missouri, I get. That's what Drinkwitz has been. Ohio State, I definitely get because that's what Ryan Day does. Florida, though, that one caught me by surprise because is that what Buster Faulkner's been doing? I thought he was more, duo inside and try to beat you up going forward instead of laterally.
They did it. They definitely did it some. They had Haynes King, so they would do all kinds of stuff. Summerall, I think, was more of that school. I don't know the extent to which he's going to dictate down. Is he more of an offensive or defensive background guy?
I think he's offensive. That's a good question. I think he tries to be like a CEO now, but I think from way back, he is he's been a linebacker guy.
Oh, okay. I still think though that maybe it should say maybe Florida, but I think Florida's going to be a little bit in that vein. And they didn't bring Haynes King over. They brought the other guy,
Aaron Philo.
Less of a runner, right?
Everybody's less of a runner compared to Haynes King.
Yeah. So you got to do. I think Florida will be a little bit like that. Plus, that's what they were doing a little bit of that already. And they keep hiring these Sun Belt coaches, and the Sun Belt coaches all love doing that. That's what like Trinkwitz's background is like that too. But I think Florida, Missouri for sure, and the Buckeyes with Arthur Smith are going to start majoring in outside zone. They're probably going to major in playing a lot of tight ends too. You wouldn't use this against a team with a bunch of tight ends because you would just play your 3-4.
Yeah, you go big.
This is basically trying to get the best of both worlds between nickel and 3-4 defense.
Yeah.
You don't need the best of both worlds. You just use 3-4. But anybody that tries to spread you out to run outside zone, this is a good weapon. And anybody that wants to throw the ball but can't break open against man coverage or can't protect very easily against all these rushers, you just do this and just overwhelm them.
Before we keep on going, got to show some love to our sponsor. That is Andre the Lawyer.
Texans know when you're injured, there's one name that gets results. Andre the Lawyer. Trust the team that has secured millions for their clients and helped thousands of Texans win their injury cases. Car wrecks, slip and falls, 18-wheeler accidents, on-the-job injuries, wrongful deaths. Don't let the insurance companies tell you what your claim is worth. Andre the Lawyer will fight for you. His principal office is in Dallas, but they serve Texans throughout the state. So don't wait. Call 214-444-8808. That's 214-444-8808. Contact info is in the description.
I guess one other thing on this one. Where does Lane fall into this? Lane doesn't do much outside running?
No, he's inside zone 70-80% of the time. Maybe not quite that much, but a ton.
The inside zone kind of feels like the thing that makes things a little bit more difficult for that, because if it's like, if you can just get these all five pushed back and move the line of scrimmage, then that you have cushion even if you don't open up any holes at that point. But it seems like you just kind of roll with your normal stuff on mint and muck up things in the middle on double teams as opposed to bringing this down. Is this easy to move from shift wise? Like,
yeah, because the jack and the money are like standing up. So it's basically it's this close to mint. You just walk a linebacker down and it goes from being mint to this, and the safety behind probably. So it's just a more pressure oriented mint basically. And mint is already great for stopping inside zone without having, maybe Rasheem Biles running or Tyler Atkinson running unblocked off the edge, or Simmons. So,
speaking of Will Muschamp, one more quick topic before we get out of here, because we have a chance to do something we don't normally get to do as media members at Texas. Steve Sarkisian likes the overall message coming from him when it comes to speaking with the media, but every now and then, and today's one of those days, we get an opportunity to talk with defensive and an offensive assistant coaches. Today, we're going to get to talk with Will Muschamp, all the different defensive assistants. So it means Johnny Nansen, Blake Gideon, Mark Orfe, Lau and Clark, and of course, Kenny Baker. Talked to a lot of those guys last year in our one opportunity with them. We'll get them again today. Justin, pick your assistant coach or pick Will Muschamp. What are some questions you are interested in from the Texas defensive staff?
I would like to ask Muschamp what he feels like was lacking when he was a head coach. He went through that big rigmarole. I want to know kind of like where he transitioned from being a big head coach to deciding, hey, I'm probably a defensive coordinator for life. What was it in his life that made that shift?
Probably all the bad offenses he had at Florida.
Let him say that. I mean, maybe he was watching offensive plays from Netflix. I don't know. But I'm just curious. I really am, because he had such a meteoric rise. And I just want to, a lot of times those guys have an ability to look back and learn at what they did wrong. And sometimes they figure out, I could have done this, I could have done that, and I can still be a head coach. Some guys just reserve themselves to, my bread and butter's defense. I'm really damn good at this. Like, I'm curious why he went back to that and kind of focusing on DC. That's fascinating to me.
I think that would also be fascinating, because I'm not sure if he has. And he's in defensive coordinator mode for the rest of his life. He is not looking to be a head coach again.
Yeah, I mean, if you can get paid $3 million to be a DC,
I don't think he wants to be a head coach. I don't think he wants that responsibility of having to deal with all the crap the head coach has to, when you can really just be a damn good defensive coordinator and focus on your side of the ball and keep your job.
If Texas misses the playoffs because the offense isn't good enough, and some big donors walk up to Will Muschamp and say, "Head coach in waiting, your time has come."
0.0% chance that happens.
Oh,
you think so? Okay.
Okay. I'll give you this. Less than 0.0%.
I don't see that either happening.
No, that dog's not hunting. I want to know why the transition.
Because again, remember, Will Muschamp, the head coach, was really good, except for that whole offense thing.
Yeah, I'd like to ask Blake Gideon how much stuff he had to fix in the safety room when he returned.
It shouldn't be that hard to be an offensive coach at Texas if you're willing. If you're willing to just take advantage of what the state does at the high school level.
Amen, Ian.
Now they don't. Nobody wants to do that. Everybody comes in with their own ideas.
He's trying to teach you people something here.
And yet, I'm curious about Blake Gideon. What did you learn as a defensive coordinator?
What did you learn when you got back to Austin? What do you have to fix?
Yeah,
you had such a great thing going, and then it took a 12-month crash into the wall. So when you came back, what pieces did you have to pick up and kind of put back together?
I'm curious about that. I'm also curious from a lot of these coaches. Gideon is very familiar with Muschamp's system, not only as a player, but literally traveling with Muschamp across multiple spots throughout his career. But if you're Alan Clark, if you're Kenny Baker, and if you're Johnny Nansen, what's it like teaching this new defense? What is it like when you are, again, there are only so many ways to skin a cat, and it's not like this is a radical thing none of these guys have ever worked with before. But what's it like having to, if you're Kenny Baker, you haven't really done much with the mint front during your career at Texas. So what's it like having to teach that? Again, it's pretty elementary because it is a 3-4 base. But what's it like having to do that over and over and over where it wasn't something you majored in? So I'm curious about that. And then as far as, Mark Orfe, Ian, you've talked a lot about let's just play all the corners. I wonder how he thinks about that and how he gets a bunch of different players ready for what they might have to do.
That's a good one. I got a couple. Can I throw a couple at you?
Yeah.
I want to hear from Will Muschamp. I have 2 questions for him. That Orfe one is really good, though. What's the biggest change in his philosophy defensively since the last time he was at Texas? And then does he have any comparisons from his past experience coaching for a player like Colin Simmons?
Who's the Georgia guy who went number 1 to the Jags?
Trayvon Walker, but he was a defensive lineman.
Oh, no, are you talking to the Jags?
Yeah.
Trayvon Walker.
Tremont Walker, but he was an edge, I thought.
He was bigger. He was a big guy.
Yeah, but didn't he play inside? Inside and outside, he's 6'5", 320. He's
I'm mixing something up then.
Trayvon Walker, I thought was a D line.
Trevon is okay. Yeah, not a comparable.
We're gonna say his name 3 different ways.
Yeah. Okay. Lance Jackson's peak could be what Travon Walker is, maybe.
Yeah.
Ideally, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it would be great if
Walker doesn't have Jackson's athleticism. Jackson does not have Walker's
size. Okay. Maybe he hasn't really had somebody like that dating. I'm just trying to think of all his different stops, like Florida.
No, I have
the guy from LSU when he was at LSU. That what was that S rusher?
Oh, way back.
I thought we were talking about just Muschamps in general. The guys,
yeah.
And I'm telling you, at LSU, that 03 team, dude, the entire defense got drafted. Marcus Spears was an all-freshman tight end that they decided to move to defensive tackle, and he almost transferred to Miami when doing it.
It doesn't look like there were any like defensive ends that came out of Florida as a result of Muschamp. Let me check LSU. That would have been
03. 02, 03.
This is a good question because ideally you might get an idea of what sort of player or what sort of utilization he has in mind for Simmons. If he's like, oh, you know what? He's like this guy. And then we go watch that guy and see how Muschamp used him.
That's the guy to ask for. Say, hey, who do we need to go watch so we know what Colin's going to look like this year?
Yeah, or just maybe or if you ask it like I did, like, who does he remind you of players you've coached before? If he doesn't give you a great comp that can be used that way, at least he'll talk up what makes Simmons good, and then that's an interesting.
Or he'll say, "I've never seen anyone."
Or he'll say, well, "I've never had a guy like this," and then you're like, "Oh my god, it's red meat."
Yeah, I mean, Colin Simmons is what Micah Parsons was supposed to be.
That's true.
If
what about
as good as Micah Parsons? I'll be fine with that. That would be just.
He'll be better than Parsons because Parsons is not a real football player. Colin Simmons lives and dies by football.
I guess real quick to get out, we can do the offensive side of things. I know Kyle Flood will probably get some pointed questions, and that's understandable. But what do y'all, if y'all had to ask any of the offensive assistants, so that's Kyle Flood, AJ Milwee, Jabbar Jalouk, Chris Jackson, Jeff Banks, any of those guys, what would you want to know here in the spring from those guys?
For Kyle Flood, how dare you? What gives you the right?
For AJ Milwee, when are you going to call plays?
Milwee would be interesting for.
When are you going to call plays? Or no. Actually, I want to ask Milwee what you saw in that booth at halftime at Mississippi State that changed the course of the entire offense the rest of the season. Because he saw something.
Yeah, I think that would be good. What he thinks of Manning.
Oh, yeah, and his thoughts on 12 personnel with 2-star rated tight ends.
Well, that's going to be the same again this year.
No.
We all feel a little better about it. Spencer Shannon and Masunis are borderline.
No, I'm with you. But if we're going to wait for a Masunis breakout game when Cam Coleman probably needs targets, I think that's going to be a major failure. So I don't see. They're going to. Sark loves 12 personnel.
I'm not worried about that
for whatever reason.
Yeah, Milwee's thoughts about the Mississippi State game, and then like his thoughts on Arch Manning and the spread in general versus 12 personnel would be interesting. We definitely want to hear updates from Flood on the state of the interior line, especially since they still have, because they're getting a lot of looks at Chapman and Baker, and they still have Seymour coming.
And they have Sikorsky, and they could bump Jordan Coleman inside.
And Sikorsky and Coleman. So I'd be curious. Yeah.
You could also ask Floyd why he played Nick Brooks when he played him.
Because they were trying to find something that
didn't have anyone.
No, he's not going to have an answer for it. I'm just kind of curious.
I think Flood is a pretty engaging and a pretty good interview. So
they all are for the most part.
I wouldn't say that.
Well, no. For the most part, I'm not. There's a guy on defense that's not going to tell you much.
I feel like most staffs are mostly that.
He's going to probably look down on you. So
here's a good one. and we just mentioned this guy who is doing the Malik Ogbo, Michael Masunis. That's the good part of Michael Masunis. He's an actual tight end and not an offensive lineman.
Do you know what though? Indiana did the Malik Ogbo a freaking ton in the semifinal and in the championship. I couldn't believe how much they did it.
I mean,
they needed to do it though.
Want to double team Ruben Bain? Bad idea.
Didn't they need to do it a little bit more? Because their offensive line was facing defensive fronts that were just so much bigger and larger than what they were used to. Maybe they felt like they needed to do it a little bit more. Competition was bigger.
They obviously,
every game they faced somebody across the line that was bigger, stronger usually.
I think the 6-0 line package stands out in Texas fans' minds because Bijan was Bijan more than like, oh, look at those guys mauling. Bijan you could have 4 linemen and Bijan would probably make it work. So I think more of it had to do with number 5 than a 6th offensive lineman.
It also helped them survive when they played an Alabama team that had Will Anderson and Dallas Turner going up against, like, who are the tackles? Like Christian Jones and Kelvin Banks.
Oh, yeah, freshman
Kelvin Banks. And, so Will Anderson still won the game for them, and Dallas Turner knocked the quarterback out of the game. So it was a little mixed for sure, but they did a lot better than we were afraid they might do. And a lot of that was that 6OL with Karich out there.
Yeah. I think I'm just curious about Jaluk and how much does he want to bring to change maybe from what they were doing last year? And how much does he think that he needs to be energy? Whereas I'm not to say Chad Scott wasn't energy, but Jaluk is. And for a room that's new, very curious, what he thought his main responsibility was as he arrived at Texas. And then, who's always been pretty good? And Ian, I think you got a chance on this one last year, Mike Bamonte. His ability, the assistant quarterback coach. And I've talked about this, you can get some very individualized coaching at Texas because they have the army of polos. Well, what's Mike Bamonte do for guys like Dia? Probably won't play much this year. What does he do to help those guys develop? What does he do as a scheme guy? What is he doing? Not for I'm doing this to develop my career for the next job. You're not thinking that, but what is he doing for stuff that would help develop his career for the next job? And he's pretty open about we teach this to do this with the result being this. He doesn't really do a bunch of coach speak, which I found very engaging when we were able to talk to him.
Isn't he the vent guy for those kids?
Maybe. I think they
talked about that 2 years ago about how valuable that relationship was because there were times where he really just needed to come in and vent.
It was Paul Christ.
Yeah, that was Paul Christ.
It was Christ. You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Good call.
I wonder if they have a vent guy. I wonder if they have a vent guy now.
Maybe it's Mark Stoops.
Well, after the whole,
can't imagine
the whole.
Mark Stoops will just vent back.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Maybe
Arch bitches at Stoops, and Stoops is like, buddy, why don't you go, coach at Kentucky for a few years and call me back?
Mark will be like, hold on. Okay, Bob, can you hear this? Okay. You got Brandon on there? All right, go ahead and say that again, Arch. Exactly like you did before.
What frequency are the headsets running at? No, I'm joking. I think they wouldn't have brought in Mark if they didn't have faith in him. So, plus he's never coached again. Well, he didn't. He only coached against Texas at Kentucky, and he almost got away with a win in 2025. So that's probably a big reason why.
Wants to know is Stoops actually on the staff?
I believe so. I know that was slow to be added, but I think it actually got done. So
ask Mike Bamonte, who's responsible for keeping tabs on Stoops and his communications.
I like that one.
You do not trust. Do not give full trust to a Stoops.
Oh my gosh. Here's a good one just to end on. Yesterday, Ian said it would be embarrassing if Texas didn't have a top 10 offense. Do you agree? What stat do you use for this? FEI? Okay.
FEI.
So not total yards, but advanced stuff. Yeah, I think it's got to be, because that seems to be a litmus or a point of no return, a necessary thing. There we go.
Justin, you're not embarrassed if they don't finish top 10 in offense?
No.
They have Arch Manning. Why wouldn't that not be embarrassing?
Do we know what the interior offensive line is going to look like?
No. And so if it goes wrong, that'd be embarrassing because they have Arch Manning and Cam Coleman.
And because you knew all offseason it was the point that needed to be
I'm not saying if it's embarrassing or not. I'm saying I don't think they have to have a top 10 defense. Offense. I don't think that's required.
Duh, they better.
I mean, it would look good. But if they win every game, if they score enough points in every game they play, I don't care where the offense is rated.
They're not going to if they're not top 10 in offense, I don't think.
What if they're number 11, Ian?
Okay, we'll be fine.
I don't think that's going to cut it, honestly.
Well, that's something we're gonna have to talk about.
We should. That'd be amazing. If we can bookmark this for the future. If that
isn't there a poly market where we can lay down some cash on this or something?
I don't know if we're able to do that. Here's something I just thought of this, and this will be either a great thought or a scary thought to end on. Y'all remember the second Jameis team in 2014?
Humble pie.
Yeah.
The first Jameis team, just one of the best, probably underrated, one of the best teams of the BCS era. Beat the dog out of everybody.
Except Auburn.
Yeah, but
they were losing with 30 seconds left. But I get your point. They were good.
So the second team.
The second Jameis team was 13-0 and got the 3 seed in the playoff because they won like 8 one-possession games.
Yeah.
Isn't that the one they lost to Oregon in the Rose Bowl?
Yeah, that's the meme of Jameis just falling over. Oregon jumped on him from the gate.
The late Jonathan Sharks was laughing at one point in the season where he was like, "This team is just trolling y'all." Because every week, everyone in college football would be like, "This team is fraudulent. They're going to be found out." And then the next game, they would pull another miracle out of Jameson's Publix bag, and escape was another narrow ACC victory. It was amazing.
Now knowing Jameson's personality, I see how it went that way now. I can 100% see why every Saturday was either a celebration or a car crash.
I am curious if this Texas team kind of looks like that this year.
Oh, God. Why would you even say that?
Oh, I'm sorry. I predicted they're going 13-0 in the regular season.
I know the question is, did Florida State have a top 10 offense the year they won the national championship? And I'm going to tell you, they did not.
I
think you're going to rely on Kelvin Benjamin.
They had like 3 NFL receivers.
You're going to rely on Kelvin Benjamin?
In Ian's thing, the 2013, the title team, or 2014?
2013, either of them.
The title team, they were the number 1 offense in FEI. In 2014, they were the number, and here's a good thing. In 2014, they were number 16 offense in FEI.
Wow. They slipped. 1 to 16 is...
I think they lost Cam Akers after that first season.
I think that might be right. They had Dalvin Cook.
He was a big help.
They had Dalvin Cook in 14.
And he was a monster.
But he fumbled like 2 times in a row against Oregon or something.
Yeah. That's a fun watch. But I think now is a good time to end it. A lot of Florida State talk. But hey, if Texas looks like 2014 Florida State, who says no except for you?
No, I say no. That team, no. That team would have gone like 7-5 with this schedule.
I mean, I'm scaling to the SEC a little bit. So that's what I'm getting at. Hey, we'll talk about all these things over at Inside Texas. So use that first link in our description or use the QR code if I can find it. They updated StreamYard, great platform. There it is. 50% off the Ultimate Fan Bundle. We're talking Longhorns football. We're going to be talking to those coaches today. We're also talking Longhorns basketball. Had a little bit of a transfer portal post. We're tracking some more stuff. We're talking Masters, and we're talking baseball. Texas versus Texas A&M this week should be an exciting one. Speaking of Texas versus Texas A&M, Academy is helping us with the Ultimate Inside Texas Tailgate giveaway. So go to that link, Instagram link that's in the description for the video. Check out how to enter to win a tailgate prize package with a Blackstone grill, a Yeti cooler, 2 tumblers, 2 Longhorn chairs, and a tailgate tent. Thanks to our friends at Academy Sports and Outdoors. Sign up there. Details are on that post. So, Justin, Ian, thank you so much. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time on IT Live, presented by Academy Sports and Outdoors.